All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Want to thank you for joining me today here at Advisys. We are taking a look today at the topic of long-term care. It is Awareness Month here in November. A lot of people focus on positioning these types of products. So hopefully what we're going to provide today is some insight into the types of conversations that you may be having with clients and prospects about long-term care. We're going to be showcasing some of what Advisys can do to help aid in those conversations. Positioning, we don't do it directly from a product specific standpoint, but in this instance, the idea is very universal. So we'll take a look at some of that and kind of highlight a little bit of our tools. So I want to thank you again. For those of you guys that are still just rolling in right now, I'll just kind of take it real easy as we get in. It looks like quite a few people are joining right now. So my name is Paul Reed. I am really a marketing effort here at Advisys, as well as a licensed life insurance agent and all around just jack of all trades, I guess. So I host these because I'm intimately familiar with the product that we offer, as well as the material in the tool, and I offer a little bit more of a sales or marketing perspective on how we approach these subjects. So hopefully you guys get something out of it. Most of you or all of you should be with Cambridge, so you probably know a little bit about us, but for those of you that don't, our mantra really is all about being your best when we feel it matters the most. And that's really when you're face to face with clients and prospects. So when you're sitting across from the table and that other human being and you're trying to relate to them the urgency, of these topics, whether it be retirement planning or life insurance, or in this case, long-term care, what are you really bringing to the table? Is it more than a yellow pad? Is it overly complicated? Are you losing them before you even get started? That's kind of some of what we'll address today. So we approach it through client education and presentation materials in a needs-based analysis. So it is simplified, but that doesn't mean that it's not valuable. So we'll talk about that approach. And then really, for you guys, the most important part, most likely, is that it's compliant, and really it's customizable. You can, add different pictures and change the title up some. I mean, there's little things like that, and I'll highlight some of the other ways that we can help you do that, kind of differentiate yourself from the other people that are doing kind of the same thing in your area. So Advisys is unique in that way. We really are. We've been around for 40 or 50 years because of our content, but we try to give you something that allows you to approach a lot of different situations. So some highlights from what we're going to be talking about over the next 30 or 40 minutes here. We're going to be talking about a touchy subject: long-term care, life insurance. I mean, those of you that really focus in that area, you probably know it's not always the funnest conversation to have, the option of someone passing away, but it's necessary. All planning boils down to risk mitigation, whether it's building up enough money so that you can withstand some financial hardships if or medical expenses or whatever the case may be, or in this case we're mitigating risk by taking a look at your risk of needing extra money when you're done working. So really this is a bit of a touchy subject, so we're going to show you some different ways to approach it. A tool for every job, that really just speaks to the fact that everyone has a different level of understanding. Myself and my background is in finance, so I tend to understand the material a little bit easier than maybe someone who's been, in retail their whole life or has a very wildly different background. So we want to be able to start the conversation in a way that makes sense, but makes sense for the person across from you. Again, being your best in front of that person or that prospect. The third thing that I really highlight is avoiding the paralysis by analysis effect. I think a lot of times people get scared off. We bring too much information to the table, or too quick to say this is what you need and need to help them understand. So we want to keep it simple so that we don't overthink it, right? And we're going to show you why some of that really fits into how Advisys does things. And then how does this conversation of long-term care fit into the larger planning picture when it comes to retirement or any of these other topics that you guys might be covering? So the great thing about Advisys is we cover 11 different areas of need, really, and we have educational material that supports all of it. So you should be able to get quite a bit out of it. We're going to be highlighting just a small portion of what we have to offer today, but hopefully it's of some value to you. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and swap over to the product. Just before I go any further, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Everyone's seeing the screen. It looks like everything's functioning right. But if you're having any problems seeing the screen, please just go ahead and type in the question box. I did not highlight that, but you should be able to enter a question, or you should see an orange arrow that will expand your menu where you can type in a question. I really try to do my best to answer them as we go along. But this is, like I said, a little more specific of a subject, so it doesn't take as long. We should have some time if there are any questions at the end. Okay, so the first thing that we talked about is the touchiness of this subject. We want to approach it as a professional, but in a way that doesn't scare the person off or start to make them, like we said, overthink it. So I want to lay out for them how we're going to go about talking about this subject. We just want to know some real common sense things, like what are the odds that it happens to you, right? If it does happen, and we're not even talking about you need to buy it at this point, we're going to take a look at that later, but what's the potential impact it could have? What are some things that you need to consider as, someone who's financially aware? And really the big question is, how can I make sure that I protect what I have saved, for my retirement? So this is just to kind of tee it up. Like I said, it is a touchy subject, so we want to be able to ease into it. So let's talk about the first bullet point on that, the odds of this. Everyone can pretty much grasp the idea that as you get older, you gain a higher risk of becoming disabled, right? The chart in the odds of disability report here just illustrates that. When you're 25, there's not many people in your age group that are injured, right? But as you get to be older, there's out of 6 people in the age group, there's a chance that someone's going to be disabled. So we want to be able to determine the odds of disability, which you don't have to do this little worksheet thing. It's really just meant to illustrate that fact, that as you get older, your risk goes up. It's pretty simple, but it's a great way to kind of explain why this is part of your overall plan, right? So the impact of the disability. This is what most Americans don't really realize. They understand that they insure things like physical possessions. They can hold it in their hand, so they understand the value of protecting that. What about your livelihood, your money, that thing that you're not always holding in your hand? So we want to be able to explain to someone that it's not just the fact that you're going to be out of work that's going to impact you. This is the downside of it right here, a very simple one-page illustration that shows that most times expenses go sharply down, income goes sharply down, and expenses can rise over time, depending on what the disability is. Now, these two reports, the odds of disability and the impact of disability, don't have to really be used in conjunction with each other. I prefer technically this one over the other because it gives you a little more simple of a chart. I also like the visual, so it's a good way to help them understand the gap that we're really planning for here, because this gap in income and expenses is going to come from somewhere, right? You're not going to just pass away because you couldn't afford it. You're going to pull it from wherever you can. If that's a second mortgage, if more than likely, we all know it comes from a retirement savings, which of course there's penalties that come with having to withdraw that early. Maybe it happens in retirement and there's no penalty, but think about your surviving spouse. There's a lot of issues here. What we're trying to do as a company with this material is give you an aid to the conversation so that it can kind of be guided. Once people understand that there's this gap, we're going to take a look at their specific numbers in a little bit, but we really want them to understand that most people are going to have this if they are not covered, right? There are some tax issues you want to be aware of. People are always going to be concerned with that, but there's actually some advantages to it. Certain expenses can be deducted, right? That we give some limitations here on how you can maybe make that work for you. Benefits are typically excluded from income. So there's another positive to help frame this in a way that helps them understand why this might be important to look at and why it's not just, just in case it happens to you, it still can be helpful to you. We have other things that we can frame up if you like combination policies. I just had a call shortly ago about this combination policies report that I think is we'll get to in a moment here. So but as you can see, the reports are very simple. They're a couple pages long. They're meant to kind of qualify the topic, I guess, for someone who may not even be familiar with what you're talking about in a way that makes sense, right? These can be takeaways. It can be generated in a PDF, one or as like I've done here today with 20 reports, as many as you like. So really, as we get past it being a touchy subject, and now they go, okay, well, I understand that there may be a need for this, right? Well, what's next? What do I do? What am I supposed to do about that? Well, you can approach it from a few different ways. That's where the tool for every job comes in. Now, the biggest wrench in our toolbox, if you will, and sorry for these really poor analogies, are things like this, the analysis portion of it. Now, here I have one for disability, but we're going to highlight the long-term care one that I have in here. And it's a simple one page with a question at top that really sums it up. Can you, the client, in this case, it's Paul and Sally Johnson, afford to self-insure? You're saying that you don't think you need this coverage. So that means that you're comfortable paying for this need out of pocket should it arise, right? Now, we're just saying hypothetically that need arises here at age 75. And because it's pretty severe, it lasts for up to 10 years. Now, we can cut this down to as long as we want, but the report that we haven't gotten to yet here in long-term care, which is somehow not in here. I'm missing one. Let me go back and add it. Apologies. Good way to highlight all the amount of information we have in here. You can see I have used most of the reports that we offer in this topic. What the analysis says is basically, if you're going to try to pay for this out of pocket, it's going to cost you quite a bit. But if you buy a policy, we can cover you for way cheaper, right? In this instance, what we're showing basically is that you have some coverage already, but there's still going to be a major gap for you. $2,500 a month is not going to do it, because what I'm trying to say a moment ago, the cost of long-term care in America is absurd. Honestly, I can't imagine how people, actually I know that this financially devastates whole families, not just the individual, right? We all really know that. So the cost shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who works in this business, but to a client, it may just kind of shock them into taking some action. A nursing home, if you don't want to share a room, $91,000 a year, and that's on average, right? So as we start to get into some of these costs, and I look at their analysis and go, hey, you know what this is going to cost you out of pocket. How's that going to impact your maybe the spouse who's not impacted by the disability, right? Are they going to be able to pay for it? Is it their retirement? Is it your son's or your daughter's retirement that we're going to end up paying this? That's all too common, right? So that's what we were trying to highlight with what we talk about in here. So it's straight to the point. This is what's going to cost you. Even if all you need is a health home aide, that's $20 an hour. A lot of people don't even make $20 an hour. So how are they going to be able to afford to have someone, live full time with them, or to come in for 8 to 10 hours a day to provide certain care, right? So we want them to kind of be a little bit shaken by that. But if that's not the right approach, if they're a little more, I should say weary about the idea of protecting themselves against risk, maybe they don't even think they're going to ever become disabled, but they understand that they might pass away unexpectedly. Then we can get into some of these other variations of long-term care, like a combination policy. I think I mentioned that a little bit ago here. This doesn't belong in here. The combination policy report, same idea. It really just gives highlights. You'll find this through and through Advisys, is that what we're trying to do is highlight the idea or the concept, right? The actual product specific pitch should be a second fiddle to the idea that this is going to solve and eliminate your fears and problems here. If your worry is that, Sally is going to be out of house and home because you had a stroke because you didn't take care of yourself for 50 years. I mean, this is how we're positioning the conversation, right? So, how do you feel about that? What's going to convince the individual across the table that this is the right move for them? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Some people are more analytical. Some people, you need to pull at the heartstrings a little bit. A tool for every job, right? So some of it is a little more direct and informational. Some of it's meant to kind of shake them up a little bit, like the analysis portion or the break even. Really, the break even doesn't really, maybe you want to go for a little bit more of the logical approach. This makes sense to me. Even if I'm paying $200 and $228 a month for $80,000 in annual benefit, even if I paid that premium for 20 years, in 6 months, the benefits will equal the premiums paid. That seems like a pretty good value. Maybe they're a bargain shopper. This makes sense to you because the average stay in a long-term care facility is 835 days. That's according to the US Census Bureau, right here in that previous report we talked about. That's over 2 years, I believe. So if you have a stroke, or if you're forced to need to pay for this thing, it's not a couple months. This isn't temporary disability we're talking about. This is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars out of your pocket or out of your retirement fund. So, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, I understand, but this is the way that I see these conversations going. You know, we talk to people every day about these reports, and people that have success with them speak to the fact that there really is something for every position, even if it's approaching small business owners. You know, we want to break down for them very simply that, you know, you might want to consider providing disability insurance for your employees, or understand as the employee how this works. If you get some benefits through your employer, right? It may not be enough, though. That's what our analysis tells us. So we go into employer, individual, how it works. You'll see if you look at, how do I highlight this here? I like using these little tools. This list here really is everything that I need. Individual income disability, it covers a little bit of everything. So we want to be able to take a look at the analysis, put all this stuff together, and approach it simply. So nothing that we have here is going to be overly complicated. The analysis is 1 page. The fact finder to fill out this analysis, 1 page. We need to know who you are when you're born, if you have any current benefits, because the real point of this report is for this right here. What is the estimated monthly cost of long-term care today in your area? We know what the average cost is, but if you live in the West Coast here, we live in Orange County, California. I guarantee you it costs more here than it does maybe in rural Indiana. So, you know, the idea is the same across the board. Simply show them. Maybe it's they already know that they're going to have problems. I have a history of you know, Alzheimer's and things like that in my family. That's something I'm terrified of. So I need to be able to be prepared. Maybe I need to approach it from a different perspective. The angle is up to you. You know, we really get a lot of calls about people that kind of sound like they want it all done for them, but we're not sitting across from that individual. There's no cookie cutter solution for selling these types of things. You have to be able to identify what is going to work for them. The need is there regardless, and how do we get them to see the need, right? So it could be any of these, right? If we want to explain, maybe there's some objection handling that needs to be done. I hear a lot of misinformation out there about Medicare covering this kind of thing, right? What does Medicare cover in this? Medicaid? Well, let's talk about paying for long-term care maybe. You know, you think that it's going to be handled elsewhere and you don't need to move forward with a policy like this. Well, how are you going to pay it? Because there's only so many ways. And we have a little matrix here that shows the pros and cons of each of the ways that you can pay for this. Personal assets, how it works, the pros and cons. Family care. This is one that I don't know how prideful people are, but I mean, I wouldn't want to burden my family with that. Most people don't, but that's really the most common, probably a hands-on effort, right? Let's make sure that, you know, someone's able to go there and take care of mom and dad. That's not what everyone's able to do. A reverse mortgage, right? This is the ding, ding, ding that we're hoping to get to, right? Some pros, provides a known benefit, but it may not, you know, everyone just needs to know that they have options, right? We're not here to just pigeonhole you and tell you buy long-term care. We're here to tell you, hey man, if something happens to you, this is what the impact that it's going to have on your life, right? That money's got to come from somewhere. So we want to know that there's lots of different ways you can try to pay for it. There's different, you know, accelerated death benefits. That's that combination policies that we're talking about. Borrowing from accumulated cash values. This is probably the most common one. We're pulling from, you know, less than favorable places. Combination policies, it goes through all of it. This is probably one of the longer reports that we offer. Now the bottom page, I think they left it last on purpose because we want to show you everything else and then show you what Medicare and Medicaid cover. Because definitely every part covers something different. And we have individual pieces in here, just to highlight, on all of this as well, right? I think it's in health insurance, government programs. There it is. Medicaid, Medigap, all these have individual reports to go along with them, but this one's a more condensed way and more suited for long-term care conversation, right? But the overall idea is that it's not going to cover everything. It can help pay for some needed medication, The things that it really doesn't pay for is skilled nursing facilities. It's limited to 100 days. Now we know what the average stay is well over 100 days. What do you do with that gap when Medicare stops covering you? You know, maybe they're not going to go all in and cover themselves fully, but let's get you something that will, help take the burden off. So, we want to be able to highlight these pros and cons for them so that they can make an educated decision. But it doesn't need to be complicated. Pros and cons keeps it very simple, right? So as I move forward with this conversation, you're probably thinking, okay, well, this is good. Okay, some of this material I can see myself using, but it really isn't your everyday sale. I don't think I've talked to anybody that makes a living off of long-term care. If you are, awesome, because I don't think it's that easy to sell. But as a part of a larger conversation, it makes sense because I think I said it right at the beginning, it's all about risk. If I'm investing my money because I want to have more by the time I retire, I'm either taking more risk or less risk with my investments. If I choose to buy life insurance or choose to buy this type of long-term care coverage, either, it's going to happen or it's not. But I need to decide what level of risk I'm comfortable with. So when you have these conversations, from my kind of marketing perspective, hone in on that. What are you comfortable with? What are you uncomfortable with? What is okay to you and your family and what's not okay? Once you get to that core thing, the dominoes should fall. And once you kind of become a little more familiar with some of the material that we have in here, it can fit into a larger conversation, and it just kind of becomes a little sneaky. You can kind of sneak it in there and go, you know what? Great. We found some great ways you're going to bridge that gap you're going to have for retirement. Our accumulation is going very well. And, now I think that there's a few different stages to planning: accumulation, protection. I don't know, everyone's got a different kind of methodology, but it's really all fundamentally the same. We want to build and we want to protect, right? So the protection portion is the natural next step. How do you have that conversation is up to you, but I think there's an easy way and a hard way to do it. So Advisys hopefully is providing you some of the easy way. We offer, and over 600 reports. What I've highlighted today is almost all of the ones that we have here in specifically long-term care, and some of the analysis as well. But what you'll see mostly is that I don't like using the term not much to it, but it shouldn't be that hard. It should be very simple. So when I'm ready to come and put something like this together for my client, I can include an agenda. I can include some of the other supporting documentation for a client that I might want to use. For those of you that subscribe to this tool already, there's a lot of things that I always get calls on that are like, I never knew that was in there. Thank you for highlighting that. Things like the agenda and things like the events checklist. If it's a conversation you've been trying to have with someone, let's make sure that we're staying up to date on what their interests are and what their concerns are. That will help us fit things into the bigger picture. That was my last bullet point. We want to be able to have the conversation about long-term care as it pertains to whatever else it is that they're concerned about. So being able to tee that up and make sure we're staying in contact with them. If it's building business, maybe you got one great sale off of a presentation like this. Let's get a referral off of that. Make sure that there's other people that can appreciate this, because the conversation is pretty universal. I mean, we see the most effective marketing and advertising I've seen has to be those very simple graph commercials. I think it's like Prudential or someone that says, no one starts saving for retirement as soon as they need to, right? The same thing is true of long-term care. 66% of Americans have saved not a dime specifically for long-term care. They've put aside plenty of money for retirement, but what happens when you have to start dipping into that for some of these needs, right? That's not something that people want to think about, but it's our obligation as financial professionals to help them understand the importance of that and really the detriment that it can cause in their overall lifestyle or their family's lifestyle or their children's, grandchildren's. It really does trickle. So once I'm ready to put this material together, I can choose from some of these. There is other supporting documentation for you if you need to reference statistical information on inflation, or if you want to even just provide them something simple like a glossary of terms, in life insurance. All that kind of stuff is in here. Over 600 reports again. So I've selected about 20. I would like to be able to customize this. That is a big draw for what we're able to do here. So when I come to the presentation tab, I have a giant list of reports here. I can organize these in whatever way that I'd like. I can add, delete, I can't alter the reports in any way because that's part of our compliance and FINRA review, is that, we're able to we have to lock these, but you can organize them and then customize it with something like this: a title page, a table of contents, a personal profile page. I find this works really well when you're first meeting someone. They want to be able to relate with you as much as you want to relate with them. So giving them some personal information, you can include that if you need to. This is all available to be customized up here in the tools options, right? Then we can add our disclaimer disclosure. This again can be personalized, customized for your own broker dealer. If don't believe Cambridge has theirs preloaded into ours, but certainly something you can edit again in the tools menu. Then a little personal touch. Paul and Sally are my clients today, so I want to make sure that they know that this is designed for them. I didn't, again, not cookie cutter. They want to feel unique. I believe we all understand in today's kind of customer service based world, everyone feels like they're special and wants to feel like they're special. So how do we make them feel special? Well, we give them a little bit of razzmatazz, if you will. Again, my slang terms today, bear with me. And then we can add something like this: how to protect your retirement savings from the unexpected. Practical, pretty direct title, but customizable. We can call it whatever we want. I see a lot of boring ones like long-term care presentation, but try to be clever. Borrow mine if you want. I really don't care. And then add an image, something to help tie this all together. We're talking today about risk mitigation. So maybe I want to, talk about, I have a ton of different pictures because I do this all the time. It might be something simple like, protecting the family, legacy planning is the title of my image. And then we click preview. Preview does the work for us. Now, I'm a millennial. I hate to share that with you guys. I'm going to be 33 here in about 6 days. And I definitely am the kind of person that wants things done instantly. Advisys is behind the scenes creating what turns out to be 44-page presentation with all these reports that I have in here. It takes a second. So once I click preview, if you subscribe to the tool, I like to offer a friendly reminder to be patient. It takes about 10 seconds or so, and it puts it all together into what will be my presentation or my draft of the presentation. I can see here there's my mug as well as my title and my image, nicely covered. As you can see here on the left-hand side, we have quite a few options for the title page. Some people like the color, some people want it a little more simple. It's up to you. This logo is interchangeable with yours. I've put ours there as a placeholder. So, hopefully you can kind of see how this all comes together. Nice table of contents, but it's very simple to do. Click a few boxes. Again, it's, as far as selecting all the material, fill in a few inputs, and then it all comes together. Once I'm happy with what I have, you'll notice there's a column of options here that'll allow me to do things like save the overall data that I have input for the client, or save this overall piece as a PDF. Like I said, this is a draft. When it's up here in the preview window, that's what we call this. Once it's previewed, okay, I'm happy with what I like or with what I have. Great, I'm gonna go ahead and print this off or save this as a digital copy, or I'm gonna go ahead and alter this in some way, meaning I'm gonna reorganize it, or I'm gonna come back to the long-term care analysis and change some data. Very easy to do, and then just re-preview. And in seconds, actually. Once you get quick with this, I can do a full report input to output in about 5 minutes. That's time saver for me, in my day when I have to, because we do sometimes put these together for some of our clients that subscribe that don't have time. We offer a kind of concierge service or, on demand, if you will, a report service where you can have these put together for you. So we do this, but we do it because it only takes us 5 minutes because we learn how to use the system quickly. Create a template from the material that we've talked about today, and you can do that. Same thing. Here's all the reports I've included, just ready to go. All I need to do, if I am starting brand new with a new client, and don't need to save my data. Here in our presentation, we have 0 reports, but very quickly, starting from scratch, templates, long-term care, check my box. I go back to presentation. All my reports are now here. All I need to do is go to one of the analysis, in this case, my long-term care, and plug in my data. 3 tabs. Take you 2 minutes. Then all you got to do is preview. Or actually, all you have to do is personalize it and then preview. Because the way I have set up mine is that everything says plan especially made for, and I just plug in the name. Pretty simple, right? So you can set that up. We're happy to help with that because we offer unlimited training and support. So really, as we start to kind of wrap this up, just encourage you to start the conversation. Give it a shot. We'll happily, give you a trial if you've never tried it before. If you currently own, we're happy to talk with you about the reports at length if you need, help you understand the material so that you can speak confidently about it. That's part of what we offer, is that unlimited training and support. So for today, if you guys don't already subscribe to the tool, typically it's $7.99. Cambridge already gets a discounted rate of $664 per year, but we're going to do you one better, and we're going to offer it for $599 if you don't already subscribe today. Okay. If you want to give it a shot, like I mentioned, we give a 30-day free trial, but better than that, we give a 60-day money back guarantee. We are confident that this material will help you to have these conversations and position yourself better and create sales. So, if that's something that you're interested in, give us a ring. We're happy to talk to you a little bit more about it, one-on-one demo if you need, kind of give you a look at some of the other material that we offer if you'd like. But we encourage you to just reach out, connect with us. Like I said, do the marketing stuff. So I put together a lot of these videos. That's why I read the reports. I kind of dissect them and think about what they're really saying, how that conversation might go with a client. And we try to help you guys with those conversations. So follow me, follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn, connect with us, go to our Vimeo page, and you can see some of the material and conversations that we're working with. So here's our hours, how you can contact us. I encourage any questions that you guys might have. At this point in time, as far as the material is concerned or what we covered today, it looks like there's just information about any other pricing options. I have talked to some people that are kind of affiliated with Cambridge, but also maybe belonging to another broker dealer or working like that. We have individual relationships. Some broker dealers with us have specific compliant or what we call branded version. So everything is already preloaded with disclaimers, disclosures. If you think you might apply to that, you can always reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you a little bit more about what we can do for you. So past that, I really just want to thank everyone for coming out. Looks like most everyone stayed the whole time. That's always good. And hopefully this was of some value to you. If you want to see more or take advantage of this, we do like to reach out and get a little feedback. I'd love to hear how you think maybe we can improve if this was of any interest to you. But otherwise, just want to thank you again for your time. So have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you for another one of these. Tell your friends. Take care.